In the packed Wyoming Territory courthouse, Sarah Coleman stood shackled and accused of murdering her own newborn son, facing the gallows at dawn. The townspeople saw only a desperate woman sold into marriage, failing to recognize the quiet strength that had carried her through months of unexpected kindness. Behind her calm exterior lay a heart that had discovered love in the most unlikely place, transforming a business arrangement with lonely rancher Ezra Coleman into something neither had dared hope for. What the jury couldn't see was that this apparent tragedy would reveal the miracle both had been waiting for their entire lives. The Wyoming Territory courthouse reeked of sweat and judgment. Sarah Coleman stood shackled before Judge Harrison, her dark hands steady despite the iron weighing them down. The wooden benches groaned under the weight of settlers hungry for justice, their faces twisted with righteous anger. "You stand accused of murdering your infant son." Judge Harrison's voice cut through the murmur. "How do you plead?" Sarah's chin lifted. Her eyes found the one face that mattered. Ezra Coleman sat in the front row, his weathered hands folded. His blue eyes revealed nothing. "Not guilty, Your Honor." The crowd erupted. Sheriff Marcus Webb stood near the door, his badge catching the afternoon light. A smile played at his lips. "Order." The judge's gavel cracked like a whip. "The prosecution will present its case." District Attorney Morrison rose. His black coat hung like a vulture's wing. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have before us a woman who sold herself into marriage, a woman who carried another man's child into a decent home. When faced with giving up that child to its rightful father, she chose murder." Sarah's jaw tightened. The word rightful hung in the air like smoke. Morrison continued. "The defendant's own husband found the empty crib, blood on the blankets. No body, no explanation." He turned to face the jury. "She confessed the child is gone forever. What more proof do we need?" The courthouse windows let in dying light. Sunset crept closer with each passing minute. "Mr. Coleman," the judge's voice found Ezra. "You discovered the scene. Tell us what you saw." Ezra's hands remained folded. His silence stretched like a taut rope. The crowd leaned forward. "Empty crib, blood on the sheets, my wife standing there." His voice carried no emotion. "She said the boy was gone." "Did she explain where?" "No." Sarah's breath caught. The man who had delivered her son with gentle hands now offered nothing. No defense, no explanation. "If the child's body is not produced by sunset," Judge Harrison declared, "Mrs. Coleman will hang at dawn." The crowd's approval filled the room like thunder. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, Ezra was gone. 6 months earlier, the same wind had carried different promises. Ezra Coleman stood on his porch, reading the letter for the third time. The woman would arrive on Tuesday's stage. She sought security. He offered solitude, a fair trade in a territory where both were scarce. The ranch stretched toward mountains that touched the sky. 5 years of work had carved order from wilderness. Cattle dotted the pastures like scattered stones. The house stood solid against the wind, built for a family that would never come. Mary's grave marker caught the morning light. Beside it, a smaller stone. Thomas Coleman, age 6 months. Both claimed by collar in the same dark week. The stage arrived punctually. Dust swirled as it stopped. The driver climbed down, then helped a young woman to the ground. She wore a faded blue dress that couldn't hide her condition, her belly rounded with child. Ezra's hands stilled on the porch rail. The letter had mentioned nothing about pregnancy. "Mr. Coleman." Her voice carried southern softness. "I'm Sarah." He nodded. Words seemed insufficient. "I know this isn't what you expected." She touched her belly. "My stepmother said you were informed." She lied. The driver handed down a small bag. Everything she owned fit in faded canvas. "I can take the next stage back." Her chin lifted with borrowed pride. "If you want." The wind picked up, stirring dust between them. Ezra studied her face, young but not foolish, frightened but not broken. "Come inside." The house smelled of wood smoke and loneliness. Sarah stood in the doorway, taking inventory. Clean floors, solid furniture. A home built for permanence. "You can have the back room." Ezra's voice echoed off the walls. "I'll stay in the loft." "Thank you." The child's father? Gone. The word fell like a stone. Ezra understood gone. It came in many forms: death, abandonment, betrayal. The reasons mattered less than the emptiness left behind. "We'll make it work." He meant it. Until spring, anyway. Sarah nodded. Spring seemed far away. The baby would come before then. That evening, she prepared supper from supplies she found in the kitchen. Ezra ate in silence, stealing glances at her careful movements. She cooked like someone accustomed to making little stretch far. "Where are you from?" The question surprised them both. "Georgia. Before that, Virginia." She paused. "You?" "Here. Built this place myself." "It's beautiful." The compliment hung between them. Beauty required eyes willing to see it. Most visitors saw only isolation. After supper, Sarah retreated to her room. Ezra sat by the fire, listening to floorboards settle. The house felt different, with another heartbeat inside its walls. The next morning brought Sheriff Webb. He rode up slowly, studying the house with predator's eyes. His badge meant authority in a territory where law came from men willing to enforce it. Ezra. He dismounted without invitation. Marcus. Heard you took a wife. Webb's smile revealed too many teeth. Congratulations. Thank you. Mind if I meet her? It wasn't really a question. Sarah appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. Webb's eyes moved over her with uncomfortable familiarity. Ma'am. He touched his hat brim. Marcus Webb, Sheriff. Sarah Coleman. Coleman now, is it? His laugh carried no warmth. What are you due? The question crossed boundaries. Sarah's hands moved protectively to her belly. Soon enough. Ezra's voice carried warning. Webb's attention shifted. Didn't know you were in the market for a ready-made family. Wasn't, but here we are. Webb remounted his horse. I'll be checking on you folks. Make sure everything's proper. He rode away slowly, looking back twice. Sarah watched until he disappeared. He knows me. From where? I'm not sure, but her hands trembled as she turned toward the house. That night, the first snow fell. Winter had arrived early, trapping them together in a space boat for one. The wind howled like something hungry, testing every board and nail. Ezra added wood to the fire. Sarah sat nearby, mending a tear in her dress. The domestic scene felt both foreign and familiar. Why did you answer my letter? The question came quietly. Sarah's needle stilled. You offered safety. From what? People like Sheriff Webb. The fire crackled between them. Outside, the wind carried promises of harder weather to come. Winter locked the ranch in ice and silence. The wind carved through every gap in the walls, forcing Sarah and Ezra into the same small spaces. The kitchen, the sitting room, the circle of warmth around the fire. Sarah's belly grew rounder as the days shortened. She moved carefully, one hand always braced against something solid. Ezra watched without seeming to watch. His eyes followed her movements like a man expecting disaster. The fever came in January. Ezra collapsed while feeding the cattle, his body shaking like a leaf in a storm. Sarah found him face down in the snow, his lips blue with cold. She dragged him inside. Her pregnant belly made the work harder, but desperation gave her strength. His clothes steamed as they warmed by the fire. She stripped away the wet fabric without shame or hesitation. Survival required practicality. For 3 days he burned. Sarah bathed his forehead with cool water and forced broth between his cracked lips. She slept in the chair beside his bed, waking at every sound. On the 4th morning, his eyes opened clear. You stayed. His voice came out like gravel. Where else would I go? He tried to sit up. Sarah pushed him back down with gentle firmness. The cattle? Fed, watered, still breathing. Ezra's eyes widened. You can't be doing that work, not in your condition. Seemed like the work needed doing. Something shifted in his face. Gratitude mixed with something deeper, respect, maybe, or recognition. The blizzard that followed kept them housebound for a week. Sarah found herself in Ezra's private spaces, his bedroom while bringing meals, his desk while dusting. The trunk beneath his window. The trunk opened easily. No lock secured its contents. Inside, photographs lay wrapped in faded cloth. A woman with kind eyes and auburn hair. The same woman holding a baby with Ezra's strong chin. Her name was Mary. Sarah spun. Ezra stood in the doorway, fully dressed for the first time in days. I'm sorry. I was just cleaning and it fell open. No, it didn't. His voice held no anger. But that's all right. He moved closer, his steps careful on the wooden floor. That's my son. Thomas. The baby in the photograph had tiny fists and serious eyes. Sarah touched her own belly. What happened? Cholera. 5 years ago. Ezra sat heavily on the bed. Started in town. Spread fast. Mary got sick first, then Thomas. Sarah replaced the photographs with reverent care. I'm sorry. I tried to save them. Rode to Denver for medicine. When I got back, they were gone. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither dared cross. The town blamed me for bringing the sickness back. Said I contaminated the water, trying to help the wrong people. His hands clenched. Maybe they were right. Sarah understood blame. She carried plenty of her own. That's why you live alone. Seems safer for everyone. The wind rattled the windows. Outside, snow fell like tears from a gray sky. I had a sister once. Sarah's voice came soft. Lucy. She was kind like your Mary. What happened to her? Sold, different buyer. Sarah's hands smoothed her dress. That's how it works sometimes. Families get divided. Ezra's jaw tightened. Your stepmother sold you both. After Daddy died, we became expenses. Constance had debts to pay. Where's Lucy now? Don't know. Haven't seen her in 2 years. They sat in shared understanding. Loss came in many forms: death, distance, deliberate cruelty. The pain felt the same. February brought a thaw that turned the world to mud. Sarah grew heavier, moving like a ship in calm water. Ezra found himself anticipating her needs: a cushion for her back, a footstool for her swollen feet, tea for her restless nights. She taught him small domestic comforts he'd forgotten: how to make bread that didn't taste like sawdust, how to mend clothes properly instead of just nodding the tears, how to listen to silence without drowning in it. Can you read? The question came while they sat by the fire. Sarah shook her head. Never learned. I could teach you. She looked up from her sewing. Hope flickered in her dark eyes. The lessons became their evening ritual. Ezra's finger traced words across the page while Sarah followed with quiet concentration. She learned quickly, her mind hungry for knowledge. Try this one. Sarah sounded out the letters slowly. Home. Good, this one. Hope. Their eyes met across the page. Something unnamed passed between them. Sheriff Webb's visits increased with the warming weather. He always found excuses, checking on disturbances that didn't exist, following up on reports nobody made. His eyes lingered on Sarah's growing belly with uncomfortable intensity. Getting close now. His observation came without invitation. Sarah's hands moved protectively to her stomach. Close enough. You got plans for the birthing? Town's got a doctor now? We'll manage. Ezra's voice carried finality. Course, some babies bring complications, especially when the circumstances are irregular. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Webb touched his hat brim and rode away, leaving unease in his wake. March brought labor pains that started before dawn. Sarah gripped the bedpost, her breath coming in short bursts. Ezra paced the kitchen like a caged animal. Should I ride for the doctor? No time. Sarah's voice came tight with pain. Baby's coming now. The storm that followed seemed summoned by her cries. Wind howled around the house while Ezra prepared clean cloths and boiled water. He'd done this before with cattle. People couldn't be much different. Sarah's strength amazed him. She endured each wave of pain with grim determination, her dark skin gleaming with sweat. When the final push came, she bore down with everything she had. The baby emerged into Ezra's waiting hands, a boy, perfect and screaming. His skin carried the warm brown of his mother's heritage mixed with something else. His eyes, when they opened, held depths that spoke of old souls and new beginnings. He's beautiful. Ezra's voice broke on the words. Sarah reached for her son with trembling arms. The baby quieted against her chest, recognizing the heartbeat he'd known for months. What will you call him? Sarah looked at Ezra through tears of exhaustion and joy. Thomas, if that's all right. The name hit Ezra like a physical blow. His dead son's name, offered as a gift. He nodded, unable to speak. That night, he sat by the fire, holding the baby while Sarah slept. The child's tiny fingers gripped his thumb with surprising strength. Something long frozen in Ezra's chest began to thaw. Outside, spring crept across the frozen ground. Inside, a family formed from broken pieces discovered what they'd been missing all along. The baby was 3 weeks old when the riders came. The dust cloud appeared at noon. 2 riders approached slowly, their horses picking careful steps through the mud. Sarah stood at the window, baby Thomas sleeping in her arms. Her body went rigid as stone. They'd come. Her voice barely carried across the room. Ezra joined her at the window. Sheriff Webb rode beside a woman in black silk, her posture straight as a fence post. The woman's face held the sharp beauty of a hawk. Constance, Sarah's stepmother, had found her. The riders stopped at the porch. Webb dismounted first, then helped the woman down with exaggerated courtesy. Her boots clicked against the wooden steps like a countdown. Ezra opened the door before they could knock. Marcus, ma'am. This is Mrs. Constance Whitmore. Webb's smile held no warmth. Sarah's family. Constance pushed past them into the house. Her eyes swept the modest interior with obvious distaste. Sarah, you look well. What do you want? Such manners. Constance settled into Ezra's chair without invitation. I've come to collect what belongs to me. Nothing here belongs to you. The child does. Webb stepped forward, his hand resting on his gun belt. Mrs. Whitmore has documents proving temporary custody. The arrangement was for 1 year. Sarah's arms tightened around Thomas. The baby stirred at her tension. Show them the papers, Marcus. Webb produced a folded document from his coat. The legal language meant nothing to Sarah, but Ezra studied it carefully. This says you bought her for household service. Nothing about marriage. Marriage wasn't part of the agreement. Constance's voice cut like winter wind. Sarah was borrowed, not sold. The year is up. She's my wife now, legal and proper. A marriage built on deception isn't legal. Webb's tone grew official. The woman misrepresented herself. Fraud invalidates any contract. Ezra's hands clenched. The boy stays here. The boy comes with his mother. Constance stood, smoothing her skirts. Unless you want to buy him separately. The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah felt the room spin around her. How much? Ezra, no. Sarah's voice broke. Don't. $500. Constance named her price without hesitation. Cash. The sum might as well have been $5,000. Ezra's ranch prospered but barely. Every dollar went back into the land, the cattle, the future he'd been building. I need time. You have until sunset. Webb consulted his pocket watch. After that, we take them both. They left as suddenly as they'd arrived. The house felt hollow in their absence. Sarah sat heavily in the rocking chair, Thomas fussing in her arms. You don't understand what they are. Tell me. Constance owes money to dangerous people, gambling debts. She sells girls to pay them off. Sarah's voice grew quiet. The buyers get what they want, then return the merchandise when they're done. What kind of men? Sarah looked out the window where dust still settled from their departure. Men like Sheriff Webb. The truth hit Ezra like a physical blow. He's the father. He came to the house when Daddy was sick. Said he needed help with paperwork. Constance let him in. Sarah's hands trembled. After Daddy died, Webb kept coming around. Said I owed him for his help. Ezra's vision went red around the edges. He forced you. Constance said it was payment, that I should be grateful for his attention. Sarah's voice carried old pain. When I got pregnant, he panicked. Said it would ruin his reputation if anyone found out. So Constance sold you to me, to hide his shame. But now, he wants his son back. The baby in Sarah's arms carried Webb's blood, but nothing of his darkness. Thomas slept peacefully, unaware of the forces gathering around him. Ezra paced the small room like a trapped animal. $500 might as well be the moon. Even if he sold everything, the sum remained impossible. There has to be another way. There isn't. Sarah stood, decision settling on her shoulders like a heavy coat. I'll go with them. Keep Thomas safe as long as I can. Like hell you will. The words surprised them both. Ezra rarely cursed, and never with such vehemence. This is my fight too now. He pulled on his coat. I'm riding to town. Going to talk to Judge Harrison. The judge won't help us. Webb has too much influence. Maybe, but I have to try. Ezra rode hard toward town, his horse's hooves drumming against the muddy road. The courthouse sat like a monument to justice that felt increasingly hollow. Judge Harrison listened to Ezra's story with judicial patience. His fingers steepled beneath his chin as he considered the legal complexities. The documents appear legitimate. If Mrs. Whitmore can prove temporary custody, the marriage might indeed be invalid. What about the child? Biological fathers have rights, even in irregular circumstances. The judge's tone carried reluctant honesty. Sheriff Webb could make a compelling case for custody. Ezra left the courthouse with lead in his stomach. Legal channels offered no hope. Webb controlled too much influence, knew too many secrets, commanded too much fear. The ride home felt like a funeral procession. Sarah was waiting on the porch when he returned. Thomas lay sleeping in his cradle, innocent of the storm gathering around him. No luck. None. They sat in silence as the sun tracked across the sky. Each passing minute brought them closer to an impossible choice. I won't let them take you. Ezra's voice came out rough with determination. How will you stop them? He didn't answer, couldn't answer, but his mind worked furiously, calculating distances and possibilities. That evening, they shared what might be their last meal together. Sarah nursed Thomas while Ezra stared into the fire. The domestic peace felt fragile as spun glass. If something happens to me, Sarah spoke quietly, promise you'll remember us kindly. Nothing's going to happen. Promise me. Ezra met her eyes across the flickering light. I promise. Later, after Sarah fell into exhausted sleep, Ezra sat beside Thomas's cradle. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell with perfect rhythm. His small fist curled around Ezra's finger with trusting strength. I won't let them hurt you. The words came out like a prayer. Either of you. Outside, coyotes called across the darkness. Their voices carried wild freedom and dangerous possibilities. Ezra made his decision. He moved quietly through the house, gathering supplies. A blanket, some food, the small bag of coins hidden beneath the floorboards, every movement deliberate and silent. Thomas woke as Ezra lifted him from the cradle. The baby's eyes opened wide, but he didn't cry. Perhaps he sensed the gravity of the moment. Forgive me. Ezra whispered the words to Sarah's sleeping form. He carried Thomas outside into the cold night air. His horse waited saddled and ready. Everything depended on timing now. The ride to the Williams Ranch took 2 hours. Former slaves who'd bought land with Union Army wages, they understood the value of freedom. Mrs. Williams took Thomas without questions, her dark hands gentle as she cradled him. How long? Until it's safe. Ezra pressed the coins into her palm. Maybe forever. He rode back through the dawn, his arms empty but his heart lighter. Thomas would be free. Whatever else happened, the boy would grow up beyond Webb's reach. Sarah was still sleeping when he returned. Ezra sat in his chair and waited for the reckoning to come. The sun climbed higher. Soon hoofbeats would announce the arrival of judgment. Ezra closed his eyes and prepared for the storm. Sarah woke to emptiness. The cradle sat silent beside her bed, its quilted interior smooth and cold. No baby sounds filled the morning air. No gentle breathing. No small stirrings of life. She ran to the main room. Ezra sat in his chair, fully dressed, staring at nothing. Where is he? Ezra's hands rested on his knees like stones. Safe. Where is my son? Somewhere Webb can't find him. Sarah's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, her body shaking with a grief too large for words. The sound that came from her throat belonged to wounded animals. You gave him away. I saved him. The distinction meant nothing to her breaking heart. Her arms ached with phantom weight. An hour later, Webb arrived with a warrant. His satisfaction tasted bitter in the morning air. Sarah Coleman, you're under arrest for the murder of your infant son. The shackles closed around her wrists like iron judgment. Sarah couldn't resist. Part of her had died with Thomas's disappearance. Ezra watched them take her. His silence felt like another betrayal. The trial consumed 3 days. The courthouse packed with settlers hungry for justice. Sarah sat in the defendant's chair, her hands folded, her eyes empty. District Attorney Morrison painted her as a desperate woman driven to infanticide. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Empty crib, blood-stained blankets, no body, no explanation. Ezra testified with mechanical precision. He'd found the scene. His wife standing over the empty cradle, blood on the sheets, the baby gone forever. Did she explain what happened? No. Did she show remorse? No. Each word fell like a hammer blow. Sarah watched the man who delivered her son condemn her to death. The jury deliberated for 20 minutes. We find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Judge Harrison's gavel echoed like thunder. Mrs. Coleman, you will hang at dawn. The crowd erupted in approval. Justice would be served. Sarah spent her last night in a cell that smelled of rust and despair. Through the barred window, she could see stars scattered across the darkness like lost children. She thought about Thomas. Was he warm? Fed? Did he cry for her in the night? The questions carved hollows in her chest. Dawn came too soon and not soon enough. The gallows stood in the town square like a wooden altar. A crowd gathered to witness justice. Their faces held the hard satisfaction of righteous anger. Sarah climbed the steps with dignity intact. The rope felt rough against her neck. Below, Ezra stood in the front row, his hat in his hands. Any last words? The hangman's voice carried no emotion. Sarah looked out over the crowd, found Webb's triumphant face, Constance's cold smile, the settlers who'd already judged and condemned her. My son is safe. That's enough. The hangman reached for the lever. The crowd held its breath. Wait. Ezra's voice cut through the morning air. He stepped forward, his weathered face calm as stone. I have something to say. Judge Harrison frowned. Mr. Coleman, the sentence has been passed. The child isn't dead. The crowd erupted. Voices rose in confusion and anger. The hangman's hand froze on the lever. Order! Order! The judge's gavel fought against the noise. Explain yourself, Mr. Coleman. I took the boy, gave him to the Williams family. They left for California 3 days ago. Ezra's voice carried across the square. Thomas is alive and free. Webb's face went white as ash. You're lying. Asked Martha Williams' sister. She's still in town. She'll confirm it. The crowd turned to search for Martha's sister. Found her near the back, nodding confirmation. Why? Judge Harrison's question cut through the chaos. Why let your wife face execution? Because I knew you'd never let her go free, not with Webb pulling strings. Ezra's eyes found the sheriff. I had to wait until Thomas was beyond his reach. The truth spread through the crowd like wildfire. Webb's connection to the child, his corruption, his abuse of power. That's my son. Webb's composure cracked. I have rights. You have nothing. Ezra's voice carried cold finality. You're a predator who forced himself on a grieving girl. Thomas will never know your name. Constance tried to slip away through the crowd. Strong hands caught her arms. Going somewhere, Mrs. Whitmore? A settler's wife blocked her path. We got questions about your business practices. The crowd's mood shifted like a weather front. Anger found new targets. Justice demanded different victims. Judge Harrison banged his gavel repeatedly. Case dismissed. Mrs. Coleman, you're free to go. The hangman removed the noose with gentle hands. Sarah's legs buckled as she descended the gallows steps, free but broken, alive but empty. Ezra caught her as she fell. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You let me think he was dead. I had to. What would have seen through any deception? Sarah pulled away from his embrace. I need to find my son. We'll find him. Together. The word hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they could cross. A week later, they sold the ranch. Everything went to fund their journey west. California held their future in its golden hands. The trail proved long and hard. Sarah rode beside Ezra in silence, her heart focused on the horizon. Somewhere ahead, Thomas waited for her arms. They found the Williams family camped outside Sacramento. Thomas had grown in the weeks since his midnight rescue. His eyes still held depths that spoke of old souls and new beginnings. Sarah held her son as tears washed clean the grief she'd carried. His small hands gripped her fingers with remembered strength. Mama. The word came out perfectly formed. That night, they made camp under stars that seemed closer than before. Thomas slept between them, safe and warm. Sarah watched the fire dance against the darkness. What now? Her voice carried across the flames. We build something new, something better. Can we? Ezra's answer came in the form of action. He reached across the space between them, his weathered hand covering hers. We already have. 1 year later, a small cabin sat nestled in a California valley. Sarah rocked a new baby daughter while Thomas played at her feet. His laughter filled the air like music. Ezra appeared in the doorway, his face bright with contentment. How are my girls? Perfect. Sarah smiled as he lifted Thomas onto his shoulders. We're all perfect. Through the window, the valley stretched toward mountains that touched the sky. Their new home promised peace and plenty, but shadows moved in the tree line beyond their fence. A familiar figure watched from the darkness, patient as death. Weth had survived his fall from grace, traveled west with single-minded purpose, found them despite their precautions. Sarah doesn't see him yet, and Ezra prays she never will. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.